Welcome to the InitiativeOne Podcast. We are delighted that you have chosen to spend time with us today. I am so eager to introduce to you one of my most favorite colleagues and one of my dearest friends, someone who's also a mentor and someone who has pushed me to be better already in the time that we have been together. I wanted to introduce you to Dr. Stephen Peters. Stephen is from Columbia, South Carolina. He and his beautiful wife, Dr. Angela Peters. So we have Dr. Stephen and Dr. Angela Peters, a power couple who have chosen to grace InitiativeOne with their talents and their experience. Stephen, it is such a pleasure to have you. Stephen and I are co-writing a book together. It's his 7th, it's my 3rd. 5 of those were co-written with other writers, 2 were solo. My 2 others were co-written by a colleague of mine, Dr. Paul Metler. Today, we are going to be talking about the book, the purpose of it, what inspired it. So, Stephen, we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fred. It's been an honor from the first day I stepped into this building in Green Bay, and the process of the past 7-8 months have really invigorated my spirit to do this work at deeper levels.
You know, Stephen is a prolific speaker. He has such a fascinating story. He was in demand all over the United States for speaking in the educational world. And it was put on his heart that there was an even more exacting challenge that he needed to give to, and that was becoming the principal of perhaps the most demanding, difficult challenge, taking on the most troubled high school in the state of South Carolina several years ago, and in a very short time turned it into an award-winning school for excellence that has become a model of how you turn around schools. And then obviously he was asked to become a superintendent while he continued to speak. But perhaps his crowning work, he, along with his wife, Angela, started a dynamic program called the Gentleman's Club and then the Ladies' Club. It was so transformational for people of children of color who had come from disadvantaged backgrounds that they had a burden to provide extra stimuli to even the playing field and to give these kids opportunities that did not come natural to them. Stephen, could you talk about that experience?
Wow. As you were talking, I was flowing in my head the experiences of many years. This is my 43rd year in public education. Started as a classroom teacher, became an assistant principal, director of principals, and then superintendent up through 2020. So I can't help but think about the influence my older brother, Ron, who was living in New York and playing for the Harlem Wizards, actually. He had just returned from playing professional basketball in Europe and Brazil. And so at the end of my school year in South Carolina, he would always come and get me and take me up to New York. And I would spend the summers there, seeing that there was another world outside of my small town of South Carolina. And it exposed me. I played with and against the best basketball players in the country in New York. And when I went off to college at Hampton, I was not only prepared, I felt like I was housed with the ability to rise to the next level.
Didn't you have something like 70 offers from major schools all over the country?
Numerous scholarship offers, and I chose Hampton University, full basketball scholarship. And when I started teaching, I couldn't help but think about the impact of that influence. And I started doing that at the classroom level and then at the school level. And then when we formed the Gentlemen's and Ladies Clubs, made up of students who had been in trouble and couldn't find their way, noticing they were coming to school more. Like every day, there was one kid who said, "This is the first week I've ever been to school 5 consecutive days." And so we knew we had something special in terms of process orientation, attendance, and when they were in school, they behaved better. And when they were in school and behaved better, they got better grades. And so we put those 3 components together: attendance, behavior, and academic achievement. And then we formed the sister version, the Ladies Club, and we were featured on Oprah.
So when they met the criteria, what happened?
Oh, wow. It's all based on rewards and incentives. If you do this, then this is what happens.
So what were some of those rewards and incentives?
So if they wore their shirt and tie for the gentlemen, shirts tucked in, pants pulled up, belts looking neat like a gentleman.
They were probably the few that wore shirt and ties?
Absolutely. They were the only ones that wore them. So they would get points for that. They would get points for not getting written up, referred to the office, no suspensions, homework done. And at the end of each month, there was a culminating activity. So we would teach them table etiquette, and then we would take them to a 4- or 5-star restaurant. First time they'd ever been to one. We would culminate the next month by taking them to the symphony or the art galleries or the Smithsonian, someplace they would never go on their own. These children were disadvantaged. And so we noticed that the more exposure they had, the more confident they became in their abilities, in their surroundings. And so when I was featured on Oprah, I went out into the world for 13 years until I was delivering a keynote at the Austin Civic Center for 3,000 teachers. And they introduced me as an education expert. And I
didn't like that, did you?
I didn't like it. I didn't feel like one. And I just don't believe there is any such thing. If I were an education expert, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be the Secretary of Education in Washington. So it humbled me. It put me in a place that I felt like there was more work to be cultivated. And so Angela and I made a decision that I would go back on the front lines of this work. And 3 days into my experience, as they called me a principal in residence. And I went into Orangeburg Wilkinson High School, affectionately known as OW, the Dub.
The Dub.
It was it was last in things you want to be first in first in things you want to be last in.
Wow.
And in 1 year, we produced 2 Gates Millennium Scholars, 2 African-American males. I think it was the first time it's ever happened in the United States that they had 2 Gates Millennium Scholars in the same school, even from the same school district. 3 days into that experience, Fred, the BBC in London called my cell phone, and they said, we hear that you're on the front lines of this work, that you actually made a decision to go back in to the war that public education is facing. And I said, absolutely. And they asked, could they send a film crew to America and document it? They wanted to film a documentary, which, long story short, turned into American High School, a school in the South. And they filmed that for a year.
I've watched that, and I'm telling you, that is compelling television. To watch the impact of your leadership upon those kids and to see the lives of those kids begin to radically transform, man, was that it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, I think, you know, and probably have the same experience or feeling as a leader, as a transformational leader, that there are many who talk about it, but very few who actually show you the work being developed. And that was important to me, that not only as I do keynotes around the country to thousands of people during the course of a year, I wanted them to actually hear my words and story, but also be able to see it in action. American High School, a school in the South, won the 2017 education documentary of the year in Europe, and it was purchased by National Geographic Television and shown primetime Tuesday nights, 9 p.m., 4 weeks in a row. And I'll never forget the grandkids coming through the living room saying, "Pop, why are you on TV?" You know, it's kind of funny because to them, I'm Pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the work was not only inspiring to many people, but I give thanks to the team of people that made that possible. I am but one person. But leaders, through inspiring examples, can inspire people to next level thinking and action. And so the people that worked with me propelled all of us to get better, as you do me every day.
Well, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Why did you choose to write the book? Leadership Transformation, A to Z, What Great Leaders Do. Why that?
Well, I will tell you that I've written 5 solo, and I've co-authored 2. So this is actually the 8th book. And A to Z, Leadership Transformation, A to Z, What Great Leaders Do, is just a compilation of 43 years of experience. And so theoretically, A to Z covers my career from 1980 to 2023. That's 43 years of experiences at many levels with many people. And this book is my favorite. Do you know enough about me? To teach me was personal. It was from an African American male saying to teachers and educators that, hey, do you know me well enough to teach me? And that answer was unequivocally yes for some teachers, and for others, not so much. And so it was a call to action to administrators, leaders, teachers, to really answer that question for countless children in our public schools. This is now my favorite. It's the only book that while writing, I have been going back and reading. And part of that truth and transparency comes from the fact that you, my co-author, write the definition of each transformative term, A to Z. I'm writing the stories and the reflections. And you also have added, which I think is the strength of the book, the 0 to 10 scale for leaders to be able to look at their self-belief system.
You know, people have, let me explain for our viewers and listeners. We know that from a scale of 0 to 10, the typical American adult has a self-belief level of 2.7. We've been researching that for over 2 decades. Today, it has somewhat been summarized in popular lingo as the imposter syndrome. But we actually go quite a bit deeper and more specific. We know that if you're going to be an effective leader, your behavior is not going to change unless you change the way that you think. And it's not going to change the way you think until you change the way that you view yourself. That's what massive research has shown. And we know that our research has shown that you need to get your self-belief level somewhere around a 7 to an 8. At 7 to an 8, my behaviors are significantly different than they are at 2.7. My teachability increases immensely at 7 or an 8. At 2.7, it's almost a 0. At 7 or an 8, when someone wants to give me constructive criticism, I see it as a gift. At 2.7, I see that you're attacking me. At 7 or 8, I love to praise people. At 2.7, I'll never do that because it means that I have to let my guard down and actually connect with someone to praise them. And so when you and I were doing this work, we said, let's come up with in InitiativeOne language that you are such a valued part of our team now, and you've raised the game here for all of us. Let's come up with a term after each letter in the alphabet that really describes 26 transformational concepts that are not in alignment with mainstream, play it safe, fear-based thinking. And as part of that, we found a way through a series of questions after each letter and concept that there will be 72 questions collectively that we will be able to tell you exactly where your self-belief level is. Is it closer to a 0? Is it closer to a 10? And then in a year, and you'll be able to do this with a workbook that will be coming out, in a year you can do it again and you can see how much of a leap that you have taken. So it's really a pragmatic book based upon state-of-the-art research that very few people are doing.
Oh, I love it. I love the concept. I love the theory, but I'm going to love seeing it in practice more. Being able to grow as a leader is probably the best gift we can give ourselves. And I think Leadership Transformation A to Z will help leaders become the best versions of themselves possible. I said something the other day in the meeting and I had to write it down. And when I wrote it down, I started processing it. And it said that great leaders are able to be humble enough to be aware of 2.7 behavior, but hungry enough to level up to 8.0. And that's a powerful paradox.
Yes.
And when you say if at 2.7 we see feedback as criticism, but 7.0, 8.0 as a gift, it feels good to be in that range, to want feedback, to want people to be transparent enough to say to you, hey, this is what I see, what do you think? And your whole perspective is changed because you're at 7.0, 8.0. This is going to be a gift to so many leaders in the world. I already have colleagues that have pre-ordered it. We encourage you to pre-order so that you are on that first leg when it comes out in the fall.
We had a company this morning after you and I spoke that reached out, and they're already pre-ordering books for all of their employees.
That's wonderful.
It's a major company. It's got some momentum even before it comes out of the gates. Is it only written for educators?
No, actually. Intentionally and strategically, it's written for leaders in the corporate world, heads of hospitals, agencies, organizations, superintendents, principals, teachers. Leaders are leaders. It doesn't matter what capacity you serve in, but it's written for everybody. And that's what I love about it. Most of my books have been specific for educators, but this is for everybody.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Of all those letters, which is your favorite letter that has the concept, the corresponding concept attached to it?
Oh, gosh, I was just thinking about that. And it's easy to answer. They all play a part, a pivotal role in my continuous development, right? I'm still learning and growing after 43 years. But D is my favorite. D is my favorite, and deliver the mail to the right address. Deliver the mail to the right address. I even start my speeches out like that way. I seek permission to speak. I seek permission to be real while I speak. And then I say emphatically, I'm here to deliver the mail to the right address.
That's great.
And the way you define that concept, and the story that accompanies that alphabet D, the reflection questions. It's going to be neat to ask people, our readers, which is your favorite? What's your favorite A? What's your favorite B? What do you see in your workplace? Asking colleagues and others to identify with their 26 alphabets and how it plays, what role it plays in their lives as leaders in the world. But D is my favorite.
You know, I've got a bunch that are really close, but one that stays out for me is in no meetings after the meeting. You know, we've all been a part of a team that we knew the meeting wasn't the meeting.
Ooh.
You know,
Yes.
we knew either there was a prior meeting and we all knew it and we were mad about it. We're stewing about it right there in the meeting, but we don't think we can do a darn thing about it. Or there's a meeting after the meeting where we know that right in front of us, we know that people aren't being real, they're not being honest, and we don't feel safe in that room. We don't feel that it's genuine. It's just a joke.
Well, you often say there are two agendas for every meeting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as long as I've been doing this work, the common language that is aligned to the common purpose of InitiativeOne Leadership Institute blows my mind because I've done the work, and I've often had conversations with colleagues who say, you know, you're different. Your speeches have always been great. I've even had my wife, who was in my audience last week, say that you were great before, but you are exceptional now. And, you know, with a healthy filtering system, because I truly believe that humility is the new smart for all leaders, that the higher we go, the more success we garner, the humbler we ought to be, spirit-led. But I will tell you that the influence and the impact that InitiativeOne has had on me, not only as a leader, but as a human being, as a husband, as a father, a grandfather, a friend, a colleague.
Oh, Stephen, someone's going to be listening to that and saying, you know, you're part of the team. What else would you say?
Well, I tell you, it's sometimes beyond words. It's hard to put into words. And you're the founder. Of course, you believe. Tracy's the CEO. I will put it this way, that it's been transformative enough that both me and my wife work here as if it were our own company.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is. You know, your wife is amazing in herself. I mean, she was a provost at a very significant university in Georgia. She turned down an opportunity to become executive vice president at University of South Carolina. I mean, she's an amazing leader. I mean, quite frankly, our wives are better leaders than we are.
I think so. I would agree with that.
And they're a lot better looking. But she chose to attach herself to our train. And man, has she made an impact. And so I am exuberant about the impact that our team is making in transforming school districts, manufacturing companies, healthcare institutes, systems, retail, grocery store chains. But what I'm most excited about is that in all of those organizations are people. People with problems, people with self-limiting beliefs, people with dreams that have been squashed, that don't think that they can ever rekindle them. And to see all that come alive again, wow, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you're partnering with us in doing this.
Yeah, it's my honor, pleasure, and definitely part of my purpose. So we appreciate you having us come along.
Well, you all, I want to say, if you're interested in buying this book, I can say this, based upon the pre-orders that we're all getting and already what our editor is telling us, I'm very confident that this is going to become one of those bestseller books based on what we're seeing already. We'd love to have it in your hands. Come to InitiativeOne.com, come to InitiativeOne on Facebook, pre-order this. You know, we also do once a month this dynamic complimentary presentation for leaders all around the country. It's our gift to the leadership community. You know, you had an executive leader from South Carolina reach out. She saw it today for the first time. What was her response?
She did. She said, I had no idea it was at this level because we'd had conversations about me joining InitiativeOne and being partner in the process. And she says, I had no idea it was at this level. I loved it. And not only her, but other colleagues of major companies and corporations around the country. It is transformative. And Angela and I both went through LT, Leadership Transformation, 9 modules, 3 hours each, 27 hours.
And then there's a year follow-up once every quarter to make sure that we reduce regression.
Yeah, as much as I've experienced over the years, I've never been a part of a process. It's not a program, it's a process, and it's transformative in many ways. It made me realize that it's impossible to transform professionally unless you transform personally. And so those two are married. That's a married couple, the personal and the professional life, the person. And if I had this years ago when I was a sitting principal or certainly when I was a superintendent running a school district, test scores would not be a worry. Politics would not be a worry because the counter punch we would have would be impact and results. And you can never argue with impact and results. And so thank you for the gift, my
brother,
dear friend.
You're awesome.
Appreciate it so much.
You're awesome, and we are brothers. Thank you for joining us. Again, click the link if you want to know more about us. Hit the like button. Refer us to folks who are hungry for leadership, for encouragement, for hope. And we hope to see you again. Again, InitiativeOne Podcast, we're delighted for you to be with us. Have a great week.